A woman was cooking when she noticed something strange. The egg in her hand was completely hollow. With just a gentle squeeze, it crumbled into fragments. She picked up another egg, but it was the same. Confused, she crushed the entire carton of eggs, only to find that every single one was hollow. That evening, when her husband came home, she hurriedly told him about the incident. However, he uncharacteristically shouted at her, claiming it was all in her imagination. His reaction made the woman suspicious, reminding her of something a neighbor had once said when they first moved into the community. "We don't belong here." At the time, the woman had brushed it off, but now it seemed increasingly ominous. This community was known as the happiest place on earth. Residents' daily needs were fully provided for, leaving them free from worry. However, there were strict rules. The men had to work at a company called Victory Tech, where they were all programmers, while the women led highly structured lives. After their husbands left for work, the women had an hour to do housework, then gathered at 10 a.m. for dance practice and spent their afternoons lounging by the pool. Their lives were leisurely, but the community had one rule: they were forbidden from leaving. As time went on, the woman grew restless. One day, while doing housework, she decided to explore the outskirts of the community. She boarded a free shuttle and soon reached the edge of the town. The driver reminded her that she should head back, but she noticed a plane crashing into a nearby hill. She urged the driver to check it out, but he refused, saying he couldn't deviate from the route. Frustrated, the woman got off the shuttle and began walking toward the crash site, unaware of the warning signs posted along the way. After a long trek, she reached a desolate area but found no trace of the plane, only a peculiar building at the top of a hill. Driven by curiosity, she climbed up to the structure. When she reached it and placed her hands on the glass, a red light suddenly flashed, and she lost consciousness. When she awoke, she was in her own bed, with her husband cooking dinner in the kitchen. Bewildered, she asked him how she got back, but he claimed she had been home the entire time, sleeping. Thinking it might have been a dream, she dismissed it. But the next day, strange things happened again. While cleaning the windows, she felt the walls slowly closing in, trapping her against the glass. Just as she was about to panic, everything returned to normal, as if it were another hallucination. The phone rang, and it was the same neighbor who had warned her before. She urged the woman not to trust anyone and to find a way to escape. However, the woman ignored the warning and hung up. Later, during dance practice, she noticed something eerie. Her reflection in the mirror had turned into her neighbor's face. Suddenly, the neighbor began smashing her head against the mirror. Shocked, the woman turned around, but everything seemed normal again, leaving her shaken. She left the studio and decided to visit her neighbor's house. When she arrived, she saw the neighbor standing on the roof. The neighbor looked at her one last time before slitting her own throat. Terrified, the woman told her husband, but he dismissed her concerns, claiming the neighbor had simply fallen and would recover soon. Their disagreement escalated into a heated argument. The next day, her husband brought in a doctor to examine her. The doctor found nothing wrong, but when the woman mentioned the neighbor, the doctor exchanged a strange look with her husband and assured her that the neighbor was only hospitalized for a fall. As the doctor opened his briefcase, the woman caught a glimpse of a report about her neighbor. Finding an excuse to leave the room, she secretly took the file, but most of it was blacked out, leaving only one chilling note: patient refused treatment. Final warning issued. After that day, the neighbor and her husband disappeared without a trace. Soon, the community held its monthly gala, a mandatory event where all the men brought their wives. During the party, the woman made a startling discovery: all the residents were from New York, and none of them had memories from before the past year around the time they moved into the community. She began to suspect that Victory Tech was altering their memories to keep them trapped in the seemingly perfect place. Confronting the community leader, she was dismissed as delusional and escorted out of the event. That night, she told her husband she wanted to leave the community. Surprisingly, he agreed. However, as they got into the car, he suddenly apologized and red uniformed men appeared, dragging her away. She was taken to a lab and strapped to a table where she overheard plans to erase her memory. Before she lost consciousness, she vowed to escape. The next morning, she woke up in bed with no recollection of the previous night. Everything seemed to return to normal. However, one evening, her husband began humming a familiar tune, triggering a flood of memories. She remembered everything. In reality, she had been a doctor, and her husband, an unemployed programmer, had signed them up for Victory Tech's experimental program. The company promised to transport participants' consciousnesses into a virtual utopia, where all their needs were met, while the women lived blissfully unaware in the simulation. The men returned to the real world daily to maintain their physical bodies. Knowing she would never agree to such a plan, her husband had secretly enrolled them. Enraged by the truth, she confronted her husband, When he tried to justify his actions, she severed their connection and escaped the simulation. Stealing a car, she raced toward the mysterious hilltop building, believing it to be the exit. The red-uniformed men pursued her, but she reached the building just in time, placing her hands on the glass and breaking free. She woke up in the real world, leaving the simulation behind. Yet hundreds of couples remain trapped in the virtual community. What would become of them? Stay tuned for more thrilling stories tomorrow.